everyone, it's Tasha. Welcome to my art channel, and thank you so much for joining me on my paper adventure. So the prompt for today is all about me, and I feel like it's important because we forget sometimes to just take a moment to take care of ourselves and think about what we want to do and delve into our own creativity. So that's what I'm hoping this video provides for you. So without further ado, let's get started. My inspiration for this project came from a lot of paper cutting videos that I've been watching. So I purchased a book called Adventures in Paper Cutting by Emma Boyes. She has 12 original illustrations. They cater to the beginner and intermediate levels, which was right up my alley because I've never done it before. So I was really excited to dive into her patterns. So I ended up doing the very first project, which was a cluster of flowers. And it was the perfect project to begin with, just enough intricate cutting to kind of get you used to it and get you used to the knife. So I love adding texture to my pieces, random texture, so I like using a sponge. All the little nooks and crannies help me get this uneven look. And for this project, I decided that I wanted to use gouache. I've never used gouache before. I tend to lean more towards acrylics and oils. Oils are my favorites, but they usually take forever to dry. And gouache paints are fairly cheap, so I thought it was a really good way to go. I also use Liquitex gel matte medium, and I use that to not only glue down my pieces, but to also seal them. And I'm also using some very cheap brushes. These are just some brushes I picked up at Michael's, which is my local craft store. You don't have to spend a lot of money on brushes, and just whatever you have on hand, just go with it. So I'm just laying out some paint colors. It's funny, I have lots of palettes, but I really like to put my paints in bowls. I'm not really sure why, but I do. And I just kind of picked the colors willy-nilly, randomly. I didn't know what I wanted, so I just threw some in there. And so here I am, just kind of pouncing away, putting lots of colors down. And I can tell you pretty much from the start, I didn't like any of this. I thought it was too dark. I thought it was really muddy. I actually was kind of afraid to keep going and kind of had like a little mini attack. It was like, oh my God, this is my brand new book, and I just kind of messed up the pages. But the great thing about intuitive painting, and it's something that I hope that I continue to learn as I keep doing these videos and working on, myself, that you really just have to keep going with it. You don't know where it's going to go. This isn't like you're making something to sell to somebody. This is just for you, so just keep going. So I'm using these really beautiful rice tissue paper that I found online. They are embedded with dried flowers and leaves and twigs, which I thought was really cool. I love the texture that it has. It's like this really nice toothy, gritty paper, but it's kind of see-through. I loved tearing into it, so I'll have that posted in the descriptions below. I'll do my best to try to make sure that all of the items that I use, that I post them so that if you're interested, that you can get them yourselves. And so I'm just basically layering, just kind of ripping again with no rhyme or reason, and just gluing and slapping them down, trying really, really hard not to think too far ahead, because that's usually where I get myself into trouble, is I start to overthink things, and it almost kind of like shackles me, and I can't do anything. So if you are that type of person, you're not alone, and just really try to break through it and just go with it. And of course, this isn't me saying that me being a planner by nature is a bad thing. I think that a lot of my success in certain things that I've done is because of the fact that I take a lot of time to plan things, and that I need to see, what the direct path is, and I have to have some sort of control over how things are done. But I also know that being that way has really stopped a lot of things from being fun for me when they really should have been fun for me. And so that's what I'm really trying to do. That's my new deep exploration for myself, is to try to, have more fun with the things that I do. So one thing that you want to keep in mind, and it's really not something that I thought about until I started doing this, is that the paint that you're using, you have to really decide what paints to use, but the gouache is water soluble. So when I add the liquid medium to it, it actually starts to run or smear. So if you want the color to kind of stay in place, you kind of want to make sure that you're using a paint that's not water soluble so that it doesn't run. But I personally like the effect. I think that seeing those bold colors kind of smear their way through the tissue paper and incorporate themselves within the fiber is actually a really nice effect. But I did realize that I was kind of getting carried away. I was ripping, tearing, slapping on the paper. And then I realized, well, you're actually covering up a majority of the paint that you put down. So, also pay attention to that too. Do you want to cover the whole page? Go for it. If you don't, though, kind of, lay back a little bit, I guess. But this is intuitive painting. This is intuitive art. So I do have to give myself credit that I was just going for it. And of course, if there's something that you don't like, you can always go back and, tweak it and fix it. And you'll see me do that throughout this video. There are lots of moments where I'm like, that really wasn't the best choice. And I kind of would go back to it and see if I could make it something that I preferred. So here I'm going to put the piece from the paper cutting book, and my initial goal for that was definitely to make it front and center. I wanted it right in the middle of the page, which I did, and I had this weird idea that I wanted it to stay white. I'm not really sure why I felt the stark white paper was going to look really great, but again, the minute I put it there, I realized that I kind of wanted it to have a little bit of color. Once it sat against the background and all of those colors and the tissue paper, it just didn't do anything for me staying white. So I knew that I was going to have to dig into that gouache and throw some color on it. So I started off with this pretty mustardy color. I'm not really sure why that's the color I chose, but I gravitated to it, so I kind of went with it. This just golden mustardy color. And total spoiler alert, I think I changed the color of these flowers probably 2 or 3 times throughout this video. And you know what? I'm okay with it. You just kind of have to just go with it. And you will hear me say that a lot, I'm sure. Just go with it. Because that's me talking to myself a lot of the time. If I hesitate and I kind of get stuck, I just kind of have to give myself that little just go, just go with it. And now I'm adding my green. And again, I threw that green on, and the second it kind of hit the paper, I thought, oh, I don't know. I felt like the green was a little too bright. It was a little too cool. And you could probably ask me, and it would be a very fair question, if you felt that way at the beginning, why didn't you just stop? And that's valid. But I kind of operate in a weird way depending on the situation. Like sometimes if I see something and I'm like, nope, I just immediately stop. But then sometimes I tend to just kind of go with things. I go with it because I feel like maybe I just need to kind of sit with it for a little bit and just kind of see how I feel after a little while. Maybe I'm actually going to like it. Maybe I'm judging something too quickly. So I just kind of wait it out, and that's what I do a lot of times with my artwork. If I'm painting, I just kind of keep going. Sometimes though, especially if it's something that I'm making for somebody else, I will just kind of stop and think about it for a little bit. But my only issue for myself, honestly, is that the little bit of time that I sit can turn into days. So I'm not productive for days, and sometimes I don't have that luxury. So sometimes it's just better for me to just keep going. So here's the portion where I'm incorporating a little bit of myself to make it all about me. I personally hate my picture taken, but I really just wanted to just put something that represented me, like physically. So that's a picture of me. For people who don't know me, that's me. That's Tasha. And so what I wanted to do was, now I'm using my magazine pages, which I love. I love, love, love magazine collages. Even when I was a kid, I was always so impressed when I saw pictures that were comprised of just like little pieces of magazine. So what was really funny about this as I got into it is I realized that the only magazines that I've ever subscribed to, other than like, quilting magazines or anything having to do with yarn, which for some reason I don't have on hand. So the only magazines I had were all food related, all of it. So all of the pieces of my hair in this collage are either from a picture of pork chops or a picture of this delicious looking braised steak with some carrots and some pomegranate seeds. So my head is just like a cornucopia of delicious foods. The other fun thing about collage is that you can really change how something looks. So the picture of myself is, my hairstyle is pretty much straight. It's just coming straight down around my face. But because of the way the background of the whole piece looks, it almost felt to me that the tissue paper looked like it was being blown across the page, from the right side of my face to the left. So I thought it'd be kind of cool if, instead of having the strips mimic my existing hairstyle, if I kind of positioned them to blow in the wind with the paper. And so you do really have a lot of freedom when you're just kind of cutting and pasting. You get to decide, how things are going to look, what the direction of things are going to be, which is, again, really freeing and exciting and a lot of fun. You can see that right there. That was, I believe, a piece of like grilled chicken or something. But after this project, a friend of mine gave me a bunch of magazines that he had just kind of hanging around. So my future projects, it won't be all food related. Just layering, layering, layering. And what's really great about projects like these is that you don't have to finish everything in one sitting. I think I was kind of stressed out at first when I decided that I wanted to actually make a video of me doing some artwork, because of the fact that I move very slowly in general. I eat slowly, I walk slowly. So, you know, there was a part of me that felt like, maybe I'm just going to take a little too much time. But, but the power of editing, you can just kind of make everything fit. And so make sure that when you're working on something, that you give yourself the time that you need to do it. Don't rush yourself. Just really enjoy the process and don't put any sort of unnecessary restrictions on yourself. This is supposed to be fun for you. This is supposed to be therapeutic. It's supposed to just be a safe space where you can just express yourself and be creative. So don't stress yourself out. So I'm using some black paint markers, and just to kind of accentuate certain parts. I didn't want my face to kind of fade in too much, so I kind of outlined my face a little bit. And I think it's really funny that I decided to put lipstick on and a little bit of rouge because I don't wear makeup generally. So the fact that I felt that this picture needed a little bit of makeup, I think, is kind of funny. So now I'm just cutting out some basic generic leaf shapes. And this is the part about the intuitive painting, the intuitive artwork, that this is when it kind of kicks in. You don't know where you're going to go, and then as you're working, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to do this. And then as you do that, you find yourself thinking, okay, well, what else does this piece need? What else do I want to do? And I just love the process of not knowing what your destination is, but just giving yourself enough credit to know that you can trust yourself, that you can just go. You can just go, and there's no right or wrong, and you can change things along the process. So I really started to really, really enjoy it when I got to this part, because I just didn't feel inhibited at all. I just went for it. So I didn't mention it before, but I did kind of go in earlier and I started putting in some green dots because I realized that the page in general in its entirety looked unbalanced because that green was only present right in the center on the leaves. And so I kind of wanted to create a little bit of balance. So I started putting these little dots, put some little white dots, put some little green dots. But then you can see here that I'm actually changing the shade of green. I'm going a little bit deeper. Because like I said, the first time around, I thought it was a little too bright. And I'm not really sure that I actually stayed with this green either. I think I might have moved on to an even deeper green when we get closer to the end of the video. But yeah, this is just part of the process. You just keep trying. So yeah, I'm kind of going over it again. But I think, like I said, I'm pretty sure that I did go even darker towards the end. Just adding a little bit more green, just to give it a little bit of balance. Need to make sure it's on both pages. Willy-nilly. I always liked that term, just do things willy-nilly, even though I'm usually the person saying, hey, you just can't do these things all willy-nilly. And here I am, trying to encourage people to be a little bit more willy-nilly than usual. So I decided that what was missing due to balance was I needed to kind of do a second cutout of the same floral piece and put it somewhere else on the page, because having that initial piece in the center for me was just kind of overwhelming because it didn't have anything to balance it. So thankfully the book that I mentioned earlier, The Adventures in Paper Cutting, she provides you 3 of each of the designs, which is really cool. So you get to practice a lot before you move on to the next step. And so I cut out the second piece, and I'm actually just going to use a portion of it, and I'm going to cut it into 2 separate pieces that I'm going to end up using in the corners. And I felt that it kind of brought the piece together instead of having like this big, bulky centerpiece in the middle without anything to correlate to. And once I got those on there, I felt much, much better. And again, trying to stay with the balance, I have the pieces that are kind of flowing off of my hair, and I didn't have anything that even was close to resembling that effect on the other side. And so that's what you see me doing here, is just cutting random long strips and fronds of the magazine in the same color schemes, and just creating this wispy sort of like space on the other side to create some sort of balance between the 2 pages. And that's something that I like to try to pay attention to, especially if I'm working on 2 separate sort of entities. I think I have an easier time when I'm just working on 1 piece of paper, but because this is spread out over 2, I really have to keep looking, and kind of stepping away to make sure that things are, kind of like in balance with each other. I'm going back in with that, kind of mustardy color. You can see I did add a little bit of red to it. And see, the middle one, I did go back, and I probably forgot to record it, but I did go back and I painted it like a darker color. So now it's almost like a deep, I would almost say like the color of a burnt orangey type of color, but I knew I went in and I changed that color. Which I think is what ended up with the darker mustards on the other flowers. I really liked that tone a lot better. And then here I go again. You see, yeah, I found the green that I liked. Like, this is that deep foresty green. It has some browns in it, and I think that's what it was missing the whole time. And so this is the green that I ended up really liking. And so yeah, once again, for the 3rd time, I'm painting the same leaves, but I got it right this time. on to the last one. And again, I'll make sure, or I'll do my best to make sure that most of the items or all of the items that I've used in this video, that I post them for you in the description box. So if you're interested in purchasing anything or trying things out for yourself, that you know where to find them. And also, I just want to tell you really quickly that I also do have a Tasha vs. Paper Facebook page and a Tasha vs. Paper Instagram. And I encourage you to check them both out. You get to kind of see what I've been working on when the videos aren't out. And Facebook, we do a monthly raffle. For every like and share, I add your name to the raffle. And also for every project that you share on my page, I add your name to the raffle. Because I would really love to see what you come up with, and I hope I inspire you to try new things, so that would be really fun. But at the end of every month, I draw 2 names, and the winners will receive a care package from me, art related of course, and I just hope that it's something that you love and that you can add to your own little collection. Please make sure to like and share this video and to check me out on Facebook and Instagram. I would love to see you there. So I felt that the final piece had to be me saying something affirming about myself, and so I chose something simple. I love being me. Because I think that we need to remind ourselves that, we have to just keep reminding ourselves that even through the hardest of times, we have to love ourselves. We have to take the good and the bad, and we have to be our biggest fan, and we have to be our biggest advocate. And I have fallen into the trap sometimes of not loving myself enough, or not feeling that I was worthy of being loved. And I think we've all been there. So I wanted to take this opportunity, because this is like my first leap into this endeavor, to just affirm I love being me. And here it is. I'm really happy with how this came out. I'm really excited that it turned into something that I love, even though I didn't know where it was going to go. So again, I hope it inspires you to make something that's all about you, and I hope it inspires you to share it with me. Go and do something amazing.